last 9 years, I have fought to fulfill it. And the fight has led me here, to this movie you're watching. Because that promise is not just about Jacob or me. It's also about you. And this year, 2012, is the year that we can finally fulfill it. And if we succeed, we change the course of human history. But time is running out. To level with you, this movie expires on December 31st, 2012. And its only purpose is to stop the rebel group, the LRA, and their leader, Joseph Kony. And I'm about to tell you exactly how we're going to do it.
We decided to spend our free time on this earth, watching Sia's, the singer Sia's 2021 film Music. Are you familiar with this one, Scott?
Yeah, I don't think I ever actually watched that, though.
I think you gotta watch it. I think everybody should watch it. It's really a hoot. It famously stars Maddie Ziegler, who's like Sia's muse.
Sayar.
And
that's what they call her in Australia.
And Maddie Ziegler plays a nonverbal autistic teen, and Kate Hudson plays her reluctant caretaker / older sister, who's also like a recovering drug addict. And the movie handles all of the various like problems, sufferings, like abuses suffered by the various characters with just like as little tact as possible, even though it thinks it's being like extremely like open-hearted and mindful. It's just like so fucking insane from beginning to end.
It's crazy.
Beautiful.
The only black character is from Africa and has AIDS.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's like dropped halfway through the movie.
Yeah, there's lots of shit like that.
This poster's so funny. That's what you went with. The music poster. It's 2 fried eggs with a ketchup smiley face on a paper plate.
Yeah. I guess that's in the movie, but
I
it's not
think
really
they're trying to like hide the movie ever since it got like ripped apart. It was really hard to find. I mean, it was on Tubi, but I couldn't even. I was searching Roku, like the general search function, and it would not show up.
It's on Canopy.
Oh, is it? All right, your tax dollars at work.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's
like one of those, and it's actually co-written by one of these types of older millennials, the kind that's like clearly in a state of arrested development to the point where they like have written children's books that are like for adults.
Yes,
like Bedtime with the Ramones.
This is an hour and 47 minutes. Oh my God. I thought it was going to be like
crazy,
55
Scott.
minutes.
No, you gotta watch it. There's musical numbers. There's dance numbers. There's dream sequences. It's like Teletubbies for adults. And then, you wonder like, oh, is this like for kids and then adults? It's like, no, they're talking about like being addicted to pain pills and like, making like sex jokes and stuff like that. But it's like literally made for babies, but for adults who are babies, AKA everybody who came of age from the years 2008 and up, which is like my generation, the cursed generation.
Yeah, the worst generation.
Yes, genuinely.
You've had the burst. The best. The best. Or the greatest generation.
Yeah, you've had the greatest. Now stay for whatever the fuck we are.
We should have waited longer to have the greatest generation, in my opinion.
Yeah, it kind of blew our load with that one.
A little early. Well, they thought that basically they thought that America was going to lose World War II.
Yeah.
So they were like, there will probably not be another generation after that. We got to make sure that the last generation before we get, surrender to the Nazis will be remembered as the greatest.
Only our citizens lost World War II.
Yeah. That's true.
I guess, we could honestly do a whole episode on music. It's not exactly Christian, but there's something very religious fanatic about it. But it's Kate Hudson, again, she plays this very like broken, millennial who's like just trying to outsource all her pain and responsibility on other people. And for the second half of the movie, she's wearing a shirt that says, "I'm not old, I'm just a recycled teenager." Which is like so on the nose. But yeah, surprisingly, Maddie Ziegler pretending to be autistic was, I'm not even kidding, like became one of the most normal parts of the movie. Like I really didn't give it any second thoughts after the first like scene where I was like, oh my God. And then after that, it was just the rest of the movie that was fucked up. Like I didn't even give a fuck about that.
It's wild when you watch it because the part that she was getting the most criticism for is not even the worst part of the movie.
Yeah. 100%.
Some would say it's just about it's probably the best part of the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a pretty low bar to clear, but
Maddie Ziegler's acting her heart out. There's like an ethical heroin dealer character who has like cornrows, like a white guy with cornrows. It's like never really addressed. It's very strange.
Yeah.
The highest anyone in my Letterboxd feed has rated this as 1.5 stars.
Oh man, I should give it 5. It's been a while since I've been on Letterboxd.
We went on this kick because my partner showed me a clip of Sia singing a cappella at one of Kathy Griffin's quote unquote salons, which are these like celebrity / liberal influencer brunches that she has at her house.
Yeah, it's a really funny clip. If this episode doesn't become 2 hours long, maybe we'll put in the audio of Sia singing Unstoppable at Kathy Griffin's dinner table. It's just so funny.
Unbreakable. Wait, unstoppable. Unstoppable. Okay. There we go. It's fun so much. I'm unstoppable. I'm a Porsche with no brakes. I'm invincible. Yeah, I win every single game. I'm so powerful. I don't need batteries to play. I'm so confident. Yeah, I'm unstoppable today.
Sia just she's giving profoundly like out of touch vibes. And the movie is just so. And then when the movie was poorly received, she made a public statement that she had become like, suicidally depressed because of it. And like, I'm sorry, because she struggles, but it's just like, girl, you're a celebrity. I'm not taking your sympathy plea, like, because you made a bad movie.
Yeah, the thing is, when you like make a movie like that for a major studio, like you got paid to do it. It's not like she sunk her own money in it and like mortgaged her house on making this movie, and it was a huge bomb. It was like she straight up got paid like millions of dollars to make this movie.
She got to make her dream project.
But she assumes she's getting that. She wants to be artistically relevant and well received.
Yes, she does. No, she really thought she was doing something. She thought she was making like her magnum opus, and it was just the opposite of that. It's really, really fantastic.
It feels like we've had some long arcing theme with our like cultural consumption lately of this sort of like ineffectual, like liberal hand-wringing activism and like the way that stuff is like bullshit. With the what was that one movie we watched with the 5 millennials and 2 of them?
This is our time.
This is our time. And then music was like kind of trying to be some sort of like empowering film for the autistic community, but it's basically just like Sia jerking herself off.
Yeah.
And then today's I don't know if you'd call it a movie, but today's documentary, I guess, call to action.
Yeah, I think we've accidentally found ourselves at the intersection.
Movie.
Yes, another doxploitation.
culminates with someone literally masturbating in public.
Technically. Yeah, no, I was going to say, just to add to what you brought up, Julian, about the overarching themes, it's not just about like liberal hand wringing and ineffective activism. It's also literally about like millennials, like peak millennial
Yes.
art. Because the Sia movie was, 2021, but it was clearly conceived of like 10 years ago by a woman whose, aesthetic like heyday was in the years 2008 through 2012. Like it's so millennial.
I think last week's movie fit into this in the most simplistic way as well.
Yeah.
Like it really is the same thing, but it's like, it's the whole thing's simple instead of being like, here's the 3 simple steps you have to do to make this insane idea happen. It's like, no, that's all you do, the simple thing, and that's the thing.
Yeah. No, you're right. The movie we watched last week about how if you wave at someone, that can change their life.
Yes.
Was in some ways the most compelling example of this exact theme of like ineffective activism. Well, we're here this week with the granddaddy of them all. Like I'm about to argue, one of the defining artworks of the 2010s. Maybe another one of those pieces of media that is like you can define culture in like a pre and post period. We're about to talk about one of the most effective pieces of religious propaganda of our times, Kony 2012. Kony 2012. I guess before we do that, we should intro the show. Welcome back to Boys Bible Study. Guys, the next hour is going to be an experiment. And the only way for it to work is if you pay attention.
This podcast will expire on December 31st, 2024.
I'm Ash, here with my co-hosts
Scott
and Julian 2012.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We got to make Julian famous, y'all.
Please, somebody do it.
We're back with another episode, and you may have followed our show for a while, or this might be your first time. But if you followed us and you saw the title of our episode, you may be wondering, how exactly does Kony 2012 fit into the podcast of people who enjoy watching spiritual, cultural, fascist propaganda? I think that by the end of our discussion here, you will understand fully why. This is our piece about Kony 2012, which, as many of us, certainly everyone my age, I was a senior in high school when this. Wait, how old am I? No, I was in college. What the fuck? Yeah, I was in college. I was a senior in college when this hit. So I was like of prime age to be receiving this, as my fellow millennials were. But yeah, this is a famous YouTube video and piece of activism by Jason Russell and the Invisible Children organization that we're going to reintroduce to you and discuss. Kony 2012.
Yeah, before we get into like the actual Christian ties this movie has, or this and the Invisible Children organization, it was like crazy watching this now after having watched like all of this shit that we have, like Ray Comfort movies, Kirk Cameron documentaries and shit, and it's like they all follow the same. Feels like there's like an After Effects plugin that you just plug your documentary footage into and put on like the Christian plugin. And it gives it this like, it's always like very serious subject matter, but it has this like sort of like youth pastor after school program feel to it.
It's remarkable. And, our foremost media critic, Scott, has coined the term doxploitation,
Yes.
which I think is like the perfect definition of what this is. I think it would be cool to talk about like this as a piece of media now that we have some distance from it. And, Scott, why would you consider this a doxploitation?
Because it is exploiting the ideas of what makes a good documentary, things that you end up attaching to feeling and building up of a feeling. And I feel like if you're making a documentary and you're adding music to it, the music that you pick should be based on what the interview or subject matter is actually pushing forward, and not the other way around, which is what you would do in like a narrative feature film, like a Marvel movie or action movie or something. And in those cases, the music is like pushing up the feeling that you want to get across. Whereas I feel like it's even using music at all in a documentary, it's a good idea. So it's less boring, but you should be not telling people what to think or how they should feel with it. And then especially in this case, it's very swelling. I feel there is this Scientology video. Scientology does this all the time, but there's this one in particular that I'm thinking of. Maybe both of you have seen too. It's probably like 8 minutes long or something. And it's like, it keeps peaking. It's like, it's swelling and swelling and swelling after every minute. Like it's getting more and more positive somehow. But it's still saying nothing more. It's just about the musical build. And it's just really trying to push a certain vibe to make you feel a certain way and get excited. So this is kind of like a very big generalization about Kony 2012, but like they give almost no, and it's why I'm glad we watched part 2, even though part 2 was super boring and I'm sure we won't retain any information from it, is because they really don't tell you anything about what's going on with Joseph Kony over the course of the documentary. And it's all just vibes based.
Yes.
And the first time I thought of the term doxploitation was just from Ray Comfort, because he's using documentary techniques to like carve out a message using editing around what people say. But this is beyond that. They're not even bothering to show you things that people say, but besides like a couple words. It's all just about like cutting faster and like using brighter shots, random smiling faces, just music that's building and building and getting Jason Russell's getting more and more excited the way he's narrating. It doesn't come across as excited necessarily, but it does. You know what I mean? He's like more intense about it in a way.
Start making Kony famous today, but all of these efforts will culminate on one day, April 20th, when we cover the night. This is the day when we will meet at sundown and blanket every street in every city till the sun comes up. We will be smart and we will be thorough. The rest of the world will go to bed Friday night and wake up to hundreds of thousands of posters demanding justice on every corner.
Yeah, it's like, okay, as long as there have been documentaries, there have been bad and biased documentaries. And I definitely think that even some of the best documentaries, you can probably judge their thesis. Like, I think that yes, a documentary should have a thesis. But the best documentaries, they show, don't tell. I mean, the media, the interviews, the information they deploy is usually done in a way that makes it so it's quite clear to you, the viewer, that their point is correct based on the data they've given us. Whereas I feel like Kony 2012 ruined documentaries forever. Like Kony 2012 is maybe the first doxploitation and the last documentary. It's like the Blair Witch Project of documentaries.
Yeah, kind of. It's like this. Is this real?
Yeah, Chad, is this real? And it also it was so well viewed. It was a sensation. It was like a perfect deployment of propaganda. I want to quote from Kony 2012 itself, about 2/3 of the way through. The Jason Russell himself, makes no attempt to hide this. He says, we should redefine the propaganda we see all day. That's a direct quote. And, now I'm paraphrasing, like, to spreading a positive activist message instead of, advertising or political ads, things like that. So he refers to, in the way that millennials at that time were obsessed with branding and content, now, that was when those terms became things that everybody used, even just like a child with a Twitch channel talked about his branding. That this originated in Kony 2012, like this era of media. And they were well aware that they were distributing and making propaganda. They called it that themselves.
Yeah, and there's a point too, I forget which celebrity it has in there, where they're saying, you might be thinking, I'm not a corporation, I'm not a magazine, I don't have any say.
It was Shepard Fairey. Shepard Fairey.
Oh, that was Shepard Fairey.
Yes, it was.
That's incredible. Please go on. Yeah, I didn't know what he looked like. That's amazing.
Yeah,
and what he's getting at is now with Facebook and social media, you do have a say. You can have influence. I think he's also trying to say too that, like, collectively we can have say about stuff, which I like to think is true, but in a lot of ways it's not true at all. And it's really funny, like, so they barely talk about what the Lord's Resistance Army is. Like, who is Joseph Kony? What is the Lord's Resistance Army? Like, do they even say Lord's Resistance Army more than once in the doc? I don't think so. Something that is clear is that he's like kidnapping children and getting them to do things that they don't want to do or wouldn't want to do otherwise. And like this whole, like, half the documentary is him getting kids to give him money and then volunteer their time to help do Kony 2012.
Yes. It's at moments like this when the very religious and faith-based nature of Kony 2012 becomes clear to me, which is an aspect that we're going to, spend some time analyzing during this discussion. But yes, I mean, Kony is the devil. Like, he is, in the world of this documentary, he is the figure who is the ultimate representation of evil. He is certainly an evil man who has affected, tens of thousands, if not hundreds or millions of lives, just by the transitive property. But he's also, they are literally putting all of the world's evil on Joseph Kony and arguing that if we were to find and kill him, it would create like a cathartic world event that would heal the world.
Yeah. The huge message of this movie for a lot of it is like, this is a crisis that crosses the aisle in Washington. Like, we've got both Republicans and Democrats who agree on this. And like, we all want to change this. We all want to send the U.S. military into Africa.
Yeah.
To state-sanctioned kill citizens of other countries.
Yes. And there's a very, he is devil-like. He is recruiting children to his evil army. Whether or not they want to or not, they usually don't, but he's using evil to coerce them. And he's lurking deep in the jungle. Like, he's sort of living in this, like, I hate to say it, but a lot of the documentary is framing for white Westerners this kind of like, teeming evil unknown of like the African jungle. And, even though there's a lot of Africans in the documentary who are, portrayed as positive and, their humanity is shown, there is this like really big like racial juxtaposition between like Jason and his, white baby and white family with this like horrible like monster who lurks in the darkness of of Africa. And it's
They
just
even
like
do the thing where they like darken his skin in photos.
Yes. They literally like lower the brightness on photos of Joseph Kony. And this is this gives it the religious feeling that it really has. I mean, one of the most powerful, and I mean this word in many ways, aspects of the Kony 2012 documentary is when director Jason Russell dedicates a few minutes of the piece to teaching his beautiful son Gavin about Kony. He sits his son down and is like, it's time to tell you the truth about Kony. And the entire framing of it is like, it's like Sunday school. It's like teaching a child who, is like, has enough consciousness to ascribe like, personality to an individual person, like to say, oh, there's a man, his name is Joseph Kony, he does evil things, but the child's conception of the world is basically in terms of like good or evil. And you're just saying like, this is Kony, he is an evil man, we need to kill him, we need to send the army to kill him. And it's very religious. It's very faith-based.
The surprise announcement came in a letter from the White House. The U.S. president's decision commits U.S. troops to help.
Through advice and assistance, not putting Americans into combat, to help the countries of the region end this threat once and for all, then that was a worthwhile investment.
It's also that fucking like millennial shit of like, the beautiful, innocent wisdom of a small child.
Yeah.
That people love to do, where it's like, they're like, hey, what do you think about like capitalist exploitation of the working class? And the kid is like, I just think we should all work. There should be no money. And we're all like, see, this kid's figured it out. But in like this case, it's like, you shouldn't have a 5-year-old dictating your foreign policy. Not saying like the people in charge are doing any better, but like, I don't know. I just, you can't be asking kids for their opinions on the fucking world, because most adults don't even have it figured out.
Yeah.
Well, you at least got to give them all the facts and tell them what you actually do. Because at one point he says, Gavin, what do I do for a job? And Gavin says, stop the bad guys.
Yes.
So Gav, are you ready? Yeah. I'm going to ask you some questions, and you can just look at me and answer the questions to me.
I'm kind of nervous.
What do I do for a job?
I stop the bad guys from being mean.
He thinks his dad's like some kind of superhero, and Jason's clearly the type of dad to make it clear that he is a superhero.
Yes.
I didn't even realize that. The fact that is what he tells his child he does for a living is just, the greatest insight into this man's narcissistic, maniacal brain.
Yeah. I think there's something there. Pretty powerful stuff. Now, again, we are operating under the assumption that most people here who are listening are familiar with the Kony 2012 video. It was a huge sensation around, the time the three of us here, were college age or beyond adults. So we were quite aware of it. It's also taken on much of a meme life beyond its first release. Honestly, it's kind of like 9/11. It's like kids who weren't even born at the time it was made are aware of it through like memes. Like I still see like that same picture of Joseph Kony like posted around the internet as a meme to this day. And also like there's much documentation of it. I actually watched, as research for this, I watched the very popular YouTube account Internet Historian. Has a video on Kony 2012 that has like 14 million views. So, it's very popular in culture. I do, though, want to state for our listeners who may not have been, cognizant of this when it happened. But, believe it or not, YouTube, there used to be records broken on YouTube all the time because like people were still figuring out how to post videos on there. And when Kony 2012 dropped, it accrued 100 million views in the first like day or 2 days, which was an astronomical achievement at the time. That was like unheard of. And it was like one of the last times maybe when it felt like the entire internet was watching the same thing at the same time.
It's still
like,
honestly still really impressive considering like every other video that has that record of like most viewed video is just a music video.
Yeah, basically.
Like that a 20-minute documentary or like a 30-minute documentary even would somehow like set the record for this. People used to have a lot more patience.
Yes.
I do think it's pretty well paced in a way. Like it went through a half hour faster than I was anticipating. I hadn't ever actually watched it, despite having heard so much about Kony 2012 at the time. I remember watching the TMZ video that we'll talk about later, but I never actually watched Kony 2012 till today.
What was do you remember, like we should all recount where we were when Kony 2012 dropped?
Well, I was definitely using Facebook at the time.
And did you have anything to add to the discourse at the time?
No, I think I just looked up what the LRA was, and then I just was like reading about ongoing effects of colonialism in Africa in general, and then I never
you started donating to the LRA. You got your LRA action kit or whatever.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I bought the bracelets from the LRA, not from Invisible Children Inc. I bought their friendship bracelets. Hey, let's see their action kit. I want to see their documentary, okay?
I need both sides.
That's fair. I need both sides. I'm a centrist.
You don't want to be screwed when one of them, like the one you're not expecting, wins or whatever. It's like when a business donates to like Republicans and Democrats.
Right. Yeah. I just got bracelets from both.
Yeah.
I'm
just a fan of bracelets.
Yeah.
The Kony player, it'd be so sick to go to a rave with the Kony 2012 bracelets. Oh my God.
Ooh,
I'm going to see if there's any on eBay.
Good call. That poster of the Democrat donkey overlapping with the Republican elephant.
So 2012.
They should do that, like overlapping with like whatever the LRA symbol is.
It's so funny because it's like there was a time in American history when Republicans and Democrats could get together and say, hey, we need to do something about Africa.
Yeah.
And it wasn't exactly a time that people are, trying to go back to.
No.
Right.
So it's so funny to me, just the lack of historical awareness of the main message of this movie, of it being like Democrats and Republicans need to come together and send our armies into Africa.
Yeah, well, it has the same amount of awareness of that around, I think, almost 6 minutes into the movie when Gavin says that if this happened one night in America, just one night, it would be on the cover of Newsweek.
This has been going on for years. If that happened one night in America, it would be on the cover of Newsweek.
And he's referring to black children having to sleep away from their homes in a big room together for safety's sake, and would be on the cover of Newsweek. No question.
I want to say, but before we move on, though, I wanted to share if Julian and I had Kony 2012 memories or experiences.
Yeah.
Because. Yeah, just to complete this thought, because I was a senior in college, but the thing was I was going to music business school, and I talked about this during when we were reviewing This Is Our Time, because when I was in music business school at this time in history, I said this on the This Is Our Time podcast, but everyone was talking about how like this is the future of marketing. Like you can do anything. Like all you need to do is like be on Twitter, just be on Facebook. You know what I mean? Like you can do. So I remember the people I went to school with being like very cynically excited about this phenomenon. Like Kony 2012 was proof of everything that we were like engaging with at the time. It was that like you could go viral. Oh
my God, that is sickening.
I don't remember like having much of an emotional reaction to the video. I do believe I watched it, or I watched like half of it. But I don't know. I was never really into like that like tragedy porn type shit. I always like I don't really care for propaganda of any kind, even if I believe in its message. I mean, now I watch propaganda for fun, but at the time I think I was probably like too cool for it.
Yeah.
And I found the idea of the Cover the Night, which we'll talk about, to be like a straight up like Millerite rapture prophecy. But anyway, that's my recollection of the Kony 2012 era. What about you, Julian?
I remember like everybody. So I was a year out of college and I was working at a retail store in town, and I just had no direction in life, and I was like trying to be funny on Twitter or Facebook or something, and I made a joke about Kony.
Oh no.
Sorry, I'm getting choked up over here. I made a joke post about Kony 2012, and I'm sure it wasn't even like funny or anything special. Basically the whole reason I'm not on any social media is because I'm extremely bad at using it, and I'm very self-conscious about that. But there was a time where I was not self-conscious about it and was unaware that I was bad at it. So I think I made like an unfunny joke that wasn't even like, it wasn't like offensive or anything, but I do remember posting the thing, it getting like no reaction for like an hour, and then posting a follow-up either tweet or Facebook post, like basically saying like, we can joke all we want about Kony 2012, but like this is an important thing. Like I kind of bought into it just simply for the reason that I was like really embarrassed that nobody liked or reacted to my post.
It was your part two. It was your part two because of the response.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was
or lack thereof in your case.
Yeah.
Oh God, the internet was so dark back then.
And we didn't even have dark mode.
No, they were still rolling out dark mode, but like they didn't you used to be able to see everything in your feed in chronological order. Remember? They hadn't introduced algorithms yet. Like
crazy time.
Part of the reason everyone could go viral was because your post was seen. Like you weren't shadow banned. You know? Or, you didn't have to like pay more for your post to get. I'm sure there were sites that, did that, but like, it's you could post your offensive Kony 2012 joke and like be pretty much aware that if people went online at that time, they would see it, pretty funny. What a time.
And that's how
media forever. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how Jason Russell knows that like everybody matters in sharing this message of Kony, stopping Kony.
Yes. And again, I think most people know who this is, and we've already talked about it a bit so far, but the central premise of this documentary is that the lead filmmaker Jason Russell, he, through his like filmmaking and outreach work, had a lot of connection to Uganda and became acquainted with, a large population of people, especially kids, who lived in fear that this, African warlord, Joseph Kony, whose force, the Lord's Resistance Army, he, had sort of a reign of terror in a region of Africa. They would, he had child soldiers. They would, there's this clip of Jason Russell on CNN saying like Joseph Kony would make the kids kill their parents and eat their parents. It's like, again, it's just the most like the worst atrocities, just like the most like Hieronymus Bosch style, like atrocities that you could imagine. This guy is doing. He is the original sin, and Jason Russell made this documentary to try to combat this, to raise everyone's attention with the goal explicitly stated to make Kony famous. Okay. This is the point of the documentary. They say this a million times. We need to make Kony famous.
It's so funny to do this in 2012, like when like having beef with people has been established as only being good for them. like propping up somebody negatively is the same as propping them up positively, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know George Clooney himself said these warlords or whatever he says should be as famous as I am, a cool celebrity. Their names should be as recognizable.
I'd like indicted war criminals to enjoy the same level of celebrity as me. That seems fair. That's our objective, is to just shine a light on it.
If our goal is to get Kony's name known, the known should join us. We are targeting 20 of the most diverse and influential culture makers to speak out about Kony and make him famous.
Oprah,
Mark Zuckerberg,
Ryan Seacrest,
Bono.
Then we're going after policymakers, the ones that have the authority to see Kony captured.
I don't know. It's still like there's like a cult of celebrity. It's just cult of celebrity. Like people can't help in general. Like if enough people are saying somebody's bad, then they're going to be like, I kind of like them, even if it's just joking at first.
Yep.
Yeah. Was it in this documentary where there was like the graphic of the quote from the unnamed person in Uganda who was like, Kony has heard about the American forces coming to Uganda and he is terrified of the great good coming.
Yeah.
And he is changing he is now actively hiding from, or he's like changing his tactics or whatever.
Yes, you're exactly right.
And it was just like, I don't know, it's just like filled with that fucking like crazy. I'm like convinced that watching this nowadays, even though I know he is a real person who is alive, I am like convinced that Joseph Kony does not exist. And this was like a CIA like test in just creating an imaginary villain.
Yeah, I mean it really is. Yeah, the documentary, it takes you on a journey through the course of the documentary where it alleges that like, you've watched 20 minutes of a documentary and then it drops like in the third act that like the work that they've already been doing has somehow reached the ears of Kony. And it kind of like, as a propaganda device, it kind of makes you feel that like, because you yourself are already more aware of Kony and his atrocities, that this like soul power that you're generating has like already had a profound effect on you.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah.
That is why it's such an effective exploitation movie, is because it starts off with like assuming you know nothing about it, and by the end you're part of the solution.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
you the climax, you are part of the climax.
Yes. You have already done something. And the documentary as a piece of media is also very interesting because it starts out not even about Kony. It starts out just with like a description of the current, media landscape at the time, with that famous quote, "There are now more people on Facebook than there were on Earth, 200 years ago."
Right now, there are more people on Facebook than there were on the planet 200 years ago.
It's first, it's like a celebration of it's like literally a celebration of viral videos. He like puts in like viral YouTube videos of like kids saying cute things. And, he lulls you into this, it's like 5 minutes of him just basically being like, everything is amazing. Like we live in the most perfect, like, worlds where we're all connected and everyone, knows about each other and wants to save each other. And then it's like, boom, there's a guy called Joseph Kony. It's like really effective propaganda. It lulls you into this like sense of connectedness and then tells you that there's this evil that lurks at the heart of your connectedness. And then, we must all band as one to fight it.
And he's barely saying more than like, there's an evil. Like
there's an evil.
I have very little idea from the doc, like what Joseph Kony does. Like, I know he's evil. I know he hurts people. I know he kidnaps children. I have no details beyond that.
It's also funny because it's like all they have to do is say like the goal of this documentary is to make Joseph Kony famous, and then they talk for the next 25 minutes about the importance of the Invisible Children organization and all of the good they do, and how like in order for this documentary to work, you're going to have to give us a lot of money.
Right.
And it's like it's like the second time they mention Joseph Kony is like at the very end where they're like, and if you do all this, we will stop Joseph Kony.
Yeah. And then there is, of course, in the documentary, that moment when they reveal that they have helped influence like Congress to decide to send like 1,000 troops to Africa. And like everyone in the documentary is like cheering at this announcement from Obama that they've like deployed troops to Africa. And yes, there is
I'm pretty sure it was like 15 troops.
Yeah, or like 100 maybe.
It was like
100.
It's some really small number.
Because they were advisors. They were being deployed as advisors to the African troops there. Like Jason Russell is very careful to say, like when the advisors are there, they will help the troops move through the jungle. You know, they will train them.
They will train local extreme right militias.
Yeah.
And children.
And other children who aren't
and other children
LRA,
who are the good children. And it is just really remarkable. And I think like now this could be a pretty good time to just like talk about the religious qualities of this documentary, because like, you know, we've spent some time talking about like its function as a piece of media and how it fit into the media landscape of the time, which is quite remarkable. Genuinely, I think it holds a place in like media history, contemporary communications history. But again, so much, not just of the rhetoric of the documentary, but also like the ways that it asks you to help are very faith-based, very religious coded. And although I didn't know this about him, in our research, you know, we learned that Jason Russell, is extremely connected to Christianity and to church outreach, even though his organization may not explicitly be about that. Now that I know this, I don't find that surprising at all. There's a very Christian element to Kony 2012.
I think of all the movies we've covered too, this is possibly the earliest that has calls to action at the end of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm trying to think.
Like this,
all
did
the
this
ones
movie
that stand out are
invent
2014 or later?
Did this movie invent the call to action? Like the doxploitation call to action? Like honestly,
maybe to this extent.
I think this film changed media.
It's also crazy that like the call to action used to be like buying something, like a kit. You used to have to get like, you used to be able to get like merch as part of your call to action, and now it's literally like text everyone you know, let there be light.
Well, yes, we've seen this quite a bit in Christian films, and like there is a possibility that Kony 2012 started this trend. And yes, I mean, in Kony 2012, you can buy these like merch kits. I guess, you know, you get something for your donation, but it still has this very faith-based. Again, it's just saying you have to think, you have to know, you have to raise awareness, you have to raise your voice. Like by doing so, many times through the documentary, people, even like politicians, say like the only way a politician at one point says the only way that like troops or countries are going to get together to arrest Kony is if they feel like people care. Like he literally says like clap if you believe in Joseph Kony.
Yeah, and that's definitely true for any time America has gone to another country to with the purposes of like killing someone is because either Americans wanted it or did not want it.
Yep.
Yeah.
We all vote for all of those decisions. And that's the beautiful thing about democracy.
But yeah, it's such faith-based framing, and there's so much about it. Another thing that I found to be like very religious, I said it already, but the culminating event of the Kony 2012 documentary is this event that everything is leading toward, the so-called Cover the Night event.
420
taking place on 420 on April 20th, 2012, which I believe was selected because it was the 20th of the upcoming month. But its date is somehow not a coincidence to me. Like the fact that it takes place on this day that is a meme is like either a perfect artistic choice or just like a total coincidence. But on Cover the Night, you were supposed to have had purchased your Kony 2012 kits, or maybe even, I don't know, printed off Kony 2012 flyers from online. And the instructions in the documentary are that on Friday night, everyone is going to sleep. Pardon me. On Friday night, everyone is going to go to sleep. And when they wake up on Saturday morning, their entire town, their entire city will have been covered in Kony 2012 propaganda. That it was going to be a different world from when people fell asleep to when they woke up the next day. And the message of Kony would be inescapable. I genuinely thought this was like a Millerite rapture prophecy. It was like, we need to stay on our roofs until the given date. And the next day when we wake up, everything will have changed. Everything will have shifted.
2012. It's a big year for world-changing events, life-changing events. Mayan calendar. Maybe the Mayan calendar was predicting Kony 2012.
It's so funny because now if you go out and you and some friends gather in a public space to demand action about something related to U.S. foreign policy, they like put snipers on the roof of the building around you.
Yeah.
And have like the police fire shotguns in the air to disperse the crowd.
Yeah.
Because that's what everybody wanted. We all voted on it.
That's true.
If here's the thing,
it's
like
democracy.
If we're talking about the current conflict, Israel and Palestine, clearly more people believe in Israel because if they didn't, then there wouldn't be snipers on the roofs of pro-Palestine protests.
You're right.
It's because more people believe in America specifically.
Yeah,
and that must be the case.
Like, where are all these people that are believing in Joseph Kony?
Yeah,
because I guess it's like the silent majority or something. And I mean, you really can't argue with that logic. If we had a referendum, like, should we, go and kill Kony, and 51% of people say no, I like Kony. It's like there's not much you can do about it. You just kind of have to accept.
That's right.
I'm picturing
the people.
I'm picturing people talking about Kony like they're talking about John Gotti. Like, when he was around, the Democratic Republic of Congo was safer. Yeah, well, it's perfect. I mean, it's the perfect cause, the Kony, that is, because one, us deploying 100 people to Africa has nothing to do with the United States foreign policy interest that I know of. I mean, who knows? They have their hands in all sorts of shit, but it's not one of the big ones that most people know about. So easy cause for the United States to be like, yeah, we'll send 100 guys wearing fatigues to the jungles of Africa. But also this reminds me very much of like, The Secret, like manifestation culture, like the Kony 2012 stuff.
Yes.
Because again, as we were saying, like what we learned from watching The Secret was that, well, yeah, if more people like Joseph Kony, then he's going to stay there. Like, I guess it's good that people are trying to manifest killing Joseph Kony, but clearly there's more people working against it because he's still there. I mean, maybe this is the thing that they said about in The Secret, how you're not supposed to be an activist, because if you're like, remember when they were like, if you protest anti-war, then more war is going to happen because you're thinking about war.
Yes.
So what you need to do is you need to be pro peace.
Right. Not anti-war. Don't be negative. Be positive.
Yeah,
it's
don't
like
be
what Kevin Sorbo
anti-Kony.
was talking about in the movie last week. You need the what's the positive side of the news of this news story?
We're deploying 100 military advisors to go to the Congo and to wave at Joseph Kony.
Along the lines of The Secret too, in the final minute of Kony 2012, they put up one phrase in print on the screen that says, "Nothing is more powerful than an idea whose time has come." I think they said that at the beginning too.
Yeah.
And right before that, Jason narrates, "A better world is coming. It's just waiting for us to stop at nothing."
The better world we want is coming. It's just waiting for us to stop at nothing.
Very apocalyptic again.
That's all you got to do.
Yeah.
From Facebook.
I completely agree. And we wanted to, in our mission to cover Kony 2012, talking about not just its a position in media, but also its religious implications. Julian found this article from 2012 that I legit thought was fascinating. It's called Mission from God, the upstart Christian sect driving invisible children and changing Africa. The author is Josh Cron. This was in the Atlantic magazine in 2012. It was written the exact week that all of the Kony stuff was brewing, and seemingly right after, Mr. Russell had his public nervous breakdown, which is such another fucking crazy element to the Kony 2012 story, that the guy literally got naked and was screaming on the side of the road because Kony 2012 went too viral.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Nothing is more powerful than an idea whose time has come, though. Don't forget.
It's
true.
And
it was time to come.
Now, the rumors said he was masturbating. He was not, but he was definitely naked. And there is video footage that you can still find from TMZ of a guy freaking out and talking about the devil and being naked on the street. And it's Jason Russell. That must be so crazy to have video of you naked and screaming. And you made it on 2012. What the fuck?
It can never be scrubbed from the internet because TMZ put it out.
Because he went viral.
It's crazy because it's what he wanted, and he couldn't handle it. Obviously he's got some other shit going on, and he was probably exhausted and all this shit, but it's still just bro, okay. This is what he's complaining about people recognizing him at the fucking hotel in Palm Springs or whatever in that one quote you sent us. But it's dude, this is what you wanted. You made yourself and your son the star of the documentary about killing the most evil guy in the world.
And he told us to stop at nothing.
Yes.
Yeah, you could have just not put yourself or your family in this documentary. They were completely irrelevant to everything that was going on in it.
Yes.
That was the most shocking thing about the documentary to me, how quickly he got into just showing so many pictures and videos of his son. Or just oh my God.
He showed his fucking kid's birth.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Well, what he was trying to do, was basically to use his perfect white son to say my child had a chance. My child had love. You love my child. I love my child. Just trying to make the personal into propaganda, but it's so insane. And I think, you're absolutely right. He made the choice. He made his bed, and it's just. I think my theory. I don't know much about his personal life. I believe he is possibly bipolar and prone to mania.
I get that vibe.
I'm not, I can't armchair diagnose him, but he he has a disposition toward activism and seems to be prone to mania. He accomplishes so much. I mean, he's done all these trips to Africa. He got fixated on that like African like war photographer who was, I'm sorry, he wasn't African, but he was like deployed to Africa, this war photographer. I'll get to it. I have the quote here. And he got fixated on him and then went to Africa himself. Dan Eldon is his hero's name, a photojournalist who was killed in Somalia in 1993. And I just feel like God bless him, but like I just feel like it kind of takes someone who's a little manic to get an idea like I'm going to save Uganda and then fucking actually try to do it.
Yeah.
Like the world needs people like that to some extent. But, if like one of my friends suddenly got like a hyperfixation on Uganda and like started traveling there and like going out to war zones and stuff, I would be like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And
so much of it is just like his face is front and center. And I understand that it's like, makes some of this stuff easier to digest for people when you like basically have your little cast of characters or whatever. But like, there is this like, we watched the music video that he made too.
Oh, yeah.
And it was like, it's about Kony. Or it's about fucking something to do with invisible children. But like, it's basically a long form comedy musical starring himself and two other white guys. And like, it feels like people who were failures at doing like sketch comedy or musical theater. And they're like, oh, if I tie my mediocre talents to a cause that no one can argue with, then they will have to watch me.
Yep. You're
like they'll
right.
have to accept me as the talent that I know that I am.
Yep.
Yeah. And the type of humor used in that music video too felt very along the lines of much of the media we intake. The music video felt a lot like a Family Force 5 music video.
Yes.
With a slightly higher budget than usual just because of the end shots of so many people.
I know.
It was in that video where it ended with a bunch of people laying down in the street to spell out "End the War," right?
Was it that one?
Yeah, I think
right.
so. There was like a big pile of bodies in front of like the LA skyline or San Diego skyline, which was very disturbing to see.
Very disturbing. Well, as it turns out, Mr. Russell, well, we'll find out from this article. So I basically just copied and pasted extended paragraphs from this article because it was fascinating. They're sort of out of context of the whole article. I'll link to it when I post the copy for the description of this episode. But I'm just going to read some of these and then, we can react to them. Some quotes from Josh Cron. Who is this man? Is he crazy? What drives him? Russell summed it up in two hesitant words. Jesus Christ. For me, that's the motivator, Russell told me in an interview early one morning from California in March as the video was first going viral. I can't do it without that faith, he said, calling Jesus the ultimate storyteller. Excitement rushed through his voice. If I thought I was doing it myself, it would feel myopic. So even though Invisible Children is not an explicitly Christian organization, in fact, later in the article, we find out that Jason very strategically decided not to make Christ, front and center in the campaign. Like he himself was still very influenced by Jesus, and believed that God to be guiding his mission and everything he did, which sounds a little bit manic to me. I hate to say it.
It sounds a bit manic.
Sounds a bit manic. I mean, religious, what's the word? Like fixation, the feeling that God is calling you or is, guiding your vision is unfortunately like a very common symptom of mania. And, however it can motivate people to do great things, it has throughout like almost all of human history. So
it'd be cool if Paul
like,
Schrader did a movie about this guy.
Oh my God, that's so sick. That's such a sick idea.
I was going to say there's also like like manic fixation of like rescuing children
Yes.
that we see a lot, especially with like QAnon and Pizzagate and stuff like that these days.
Yeah, and the movie that you watched that we didn't cover for the show, the famous one.
Sound of Freedom. Yeah, this was
Sound of Freedom.
extremely Sound of Freedom coded.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. There's like, that's another just like a trope of like people having manic episodes is like there's mass amounts of children in danger and like I need to save them myself specifically. Although, you know, Jason Russell is, you know, he was not wrong. He identified a very, you know, evil and upsetting thing that was happening. But would it surprise, you know, people listening to this to find out that Jason had a lot of training in the church about his background? Josh Cron writes, for a young Jason Russell, growing up in a sunny and observant San Diego community, two things seem to matter most: acting and God. His parents helped found Christian Youth Theater, an after-school theater arts program that calls itself the nation's largest youth theater. He accepted Christ into his heart when he was 5 years old, he said in a 2010 interview on Catholic radio station Relevant Radio. He even met his current wife in the theater program. He was 7 and she was 6. They abstained from sex until they were married.
I should hope they're not having sex when they're 7 years old.
Okay, that sentence structure is a little unfortunate, but I guess they dated when they were, you know, kids and teens. They abstained from sex until they were married. He sang "The Luckiest" by Ben Folds when he proposed.
Wow.
and then after he returned, because, you know, he went to Africa when he was quite young. I think he was college age. After returning to the U.S., he helped write a treatment for a musical film that was sold to DreamWorks.
Whoa.
And graduated from the University of Southern California with a degree in film. So he was an undergrad film student when he sold a movie musical to DreamWorks.
He also co-wrote that with the guy who wrote and directed Crazy Rich Asians.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Wild.
Yeah, it was on his Wikipedia. Just small. Hey, it's a small town, man. Hollywood is a small town.
It really is.
Man, this guy's a grade A dreamer.
He really is. People say he's a dreamer, and he's not the only one, but he's one of the best. Also, I want to point out, Hollywood is a small town, and do you know who is lurking in the trees of Griffith Park? Joseph Kony, the warlord. And he is recruiting child actors.
His traveling theater troupe.
Yeah. His evil commedia dell'arte, like traveling troupe that, like, I don't know. That's where this image is going. Okay. So then in the article, it talks about the relationship between invisible children and Jason Russell's personal faith, and specifically this church that he considered himself affiliated with called the Emerging Church, I believe. I'll get to the quote here in a moment. But, you know, just talking about, no doubt Russell is evangelic, but he and invisible children are spreading the gospel in the emerging church style. No Bibles, but movies. Instead of telling us what to believe, silently, secretly putting our consciences toward Jesus Christ.
Yes.
America has wrapped itself around the cross, and that is blasphemy, Russell told me. Our point is, let humanity be the identity, then just join with humanity. The group is a product of a little-known, ultra-liberal, and highly controversial post-evangelical Christian movement known as the Emerging Church. So I thought this was interesting because in some ways, in my opinion, Jason Russell really has the right idea about proselytizing through media. He's honestly, as the article goes on, I think that he does a lot of stuff that we have proposed as a podcast is wrong with a lot of ways that like other Christians proselytize in their films. Like we've speculated about some of the very concepts that he has. He's like the first Christian filmmaker that's kind of like integrated how not to like scare people off by being a Christian.
Right, yeah. He doesn't even say he's a Christian. It's just all about like basically saying like act as though Jesus acted without ever saying like this is what Jesus does. you know?
Yes, exactly. And it's like, not to say that, we don't, as a podcast, and certainly a lot of people have criticisms about his product, about his message. I do appreciate the way that he approached it. And he goes on to say that in this very interview, he says he had found his mission. Blah, blah, blah. Let me back up. I didn't like what we were doing. I didn't like spreading the gospel in this way, he said during our March interview. All the Kenyans I met, they didn't need faith. Their faith was stronger than mine. That was when I decided to go back and tell a story, telling it apart from any organization. Russell would spread the gospel of Jesus Christ, and he was going to do it without talking about Jesus Christ. Rather, his plan was to embody the gospel by, as he put it, ending genocide, and he was going to do it through a movie.
Amazing. I think that's, like you're saying, Ash, it's a big part of what we cover here on our podcast. And it's like, how do you both make the message more succinct and wrap it in more layers, like an onion or whatever? Like you have God's word. You have the original ancient Greek version of that word. You have multiple translations. You have those translations brought to a modern understanding in a church of how someone preaches it. Someone hears that message. They fill out the story around it. They create the chosen. The person's father who made the chosen turns that into a novelization. And that's the type of, that's how you get the word in its purest way. And then you live out that novelization of the chosen to help save Uganda.
I mean, yes, literally, yes. And, it's funny because The Chosen is some of the most high profile example of this, but, all the time, what is one of the most obvious yet, it can't be said enough criticisms of these evangelical Christian filmmakers? They get so caught up in no, people have to hear our word literally as we understand it, because that's the only way it works. So they make a movie that's a creepy guy at a bar coming up and just yelling stuff in your ear without letting you get a word in. And you're like, oh God, please go away from me. And then you don't like their film because it's so full of this specific information that they're telling you the words, but they're not making you feel the message. That's the problem with 99% of the movies we watch.
Yeah. I'm just thinking back on this now for some reason, but remember in the Dave Cristiano show that he made? It was called 7th Street Theater or something.
Yeah, something like that.
In the 2-part episode we watched of that,
about them doing practical jokes.
Yeah, the Christian theater troupe that's doing practical jokes on each other. One of them to present the gospel did a Christian mime performance.
Right.
And so he's kind of, I feel like Jason Russell's kind of doing that, but with words.
Yes. He himself, he says explicitly, his mission is to spread the gospel without saying the words of the gospel. He's spreading the feeling of the gospel by trying to get people actively involved in something that he believes Christ would want. And he says about, the subjects of his documentaries, the Kenyans in this particular case, he says that they don't need us to tell them about Jesus. They have faith. Reading between the lines, he's saying their lives are so much harder than us. They live in fear. They live in faith. That's faith is not what they're missing. The word of Jesus is not what they're missing. What they need is help. And, he figured that best not to scare people away. Here's another quote from him. It was too delicate of a choice to put the cross on our website or to put a fish on the website, he said in the 2010 radio interview, because you're honestly dealing with the truth. You're dealing with the creator. And so to make a brand around that and to have money flow in and out around that idea, he continued, felt cheap.
I can get behind that. It's kind of like the true meaning of blasphemy, using God's name for your own gain.
No, he's fucking spitting. Like, I mean, I think Kony 2012 is insane. I think it's an insane piece of media. But I think that part of the way why it was so successful is that he didn't kneecap himself by insisting that, like, he very literally, like, spread the word of God, like the Christian evangelical word of God. If he did that, high chance, in my opinion, this thing would have never gone out the door.
Yeah, it just would have been another thing that's just shown in churches during Sunday school.
Right. And you know, I had there was a missionary who, like, a pastor who was a missionary who went to the church where I grew up. Not the church that my mom currently goes to, but the one we attended before that when I was quite young. There was a missionary who he and his wife would, like, fly to Africa all the time, and they would, like, come back and show videos of them, like, teaching the gospel to Africans and stuff. And this movie would have been just that. It would have been like a pastor flying back and forth saying, like, check it out, I hung out with some Africans, you know? And it wasn't that. It was, at the time, like, the most viewed documentary, like, basically ever, or like internet documentary ever. And, you know, he was smart about that. He also says, this is talking about the so-called emerging church. At the heart of its movement is the growing perception that mainstream organized Christianity is not only fundamentally flawed with all its dictates and rigid doctrines and an inherently negative and insecure worldview, as many emerging church adherents see it, but that it follows a false gospel. Some wouldn't mind seeing the Vatican collapse. That's what it says about the emerging church. So,
whoa.
They got some anti-popes over there.
They got some fucking Jesuits in there, right?
Yeah, some Jesuit infiltrators.
Yeah. But still, I mean, these emerging church people, they are saying some of the shit that, like, you know, we've joked many times on our show over the years, like, can't, like, Christian filmmakers just pay us a modest fee to come in and watch these movies and be like, listen, no one is going to watch this shit. It's insane. Like, if you really want to tell people about Jesus, do not do it this way. Like, we've joked about that. And I feel like Jason Russell, for all his, like, flaws and the shit that I have to criticize about him, like, he gets it. He actually succeeded in his mission of being a Christian filmmaker in a way that so many people fail.
He gets us. Actually, it is kind of like a he gets us commercial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Washing Joseph Kony's feet.
Oh my God, that is Julian. You have an opportunity to run the ad that will change the world, the Super Bowl ad that will change the world.
New plan.
Jason Russell washing Joseph Kony's feet.
Yeah, and yeah. I think those are, like, some of the most important quotes. I copy pasted a bunch of stuff, but let me just read the last paragraph that I copy pasted. It says, here's the one I bolded because I wanted to make sure I said it. Quote, assuming we are in a secular culture, which we are, that is in need of the church, which it is. This is a quote from a Pastor Driscoll of the Emerging Church, said in 2006. The question is, how should we function as missionaries and emerge a faithful church for postmodern culture? What does that church look like? And this Pastor Driscoll, he's identified the problem. This is the problem with, like, a lot of media creation, Christian media creation. Like, we are living in a postmodern world. Everyone rejects stuff that's given to them, like, on the surface. Like, you need to we live in this, like, double post irony world. You know what I mean? Like, you can't just film, you can't have a movie about a diner where the waiter's name is Jesus. Well, and he turns the water into wine.
It is a pretty good
you can.
movie.
You can, and it's one of our favorite movies we've ever watched. But is that going to make a person with an IQ above 80 convert to Christianity? I don't know.
Lou Cipher, 2012.
We need to make Lou Cipher famous, y'all.
That's all we got to do.
And okay, the last paragraph of this article, then I'll stop. Invisible Children wants to be attractive to anyone from any background, period. said Ben Kesey, the CEO of Invisible Children. We want to build loyalty around a lifestyle brand. Indeed, staying silent on explicit religious topics while oozing a Jesus-y pheromone has allowed Invisible Children to tap an entire spectrum of Christian charities, philanthropists, and celebrities from the most liberal to the most conservative. So they won. They figured it out.
Amazing. I was going back real quick. The Pastor Driscoll you were quoting, was that Mark Driscoll?
It might be. I didn't copy his first name from the article, but what do you know about him?
Oh, he's just a controversial church figure who got kicked out of Mars Hill for being a bully, basically. You know, just
cool.
An aggressive,
Mark
aggressive
Driscoll.
maniac in general, who's like one of the people who's like, my word is the word kind of guys.
Wow. I didn't know that about him. I mean, yeah, you're absolutely correct. That's the guy that this article is quoting.
Fantastic.
And at the time, he was part of the so-called like emerging post-evangelical church.
That's great. He's homies with Jason Russell.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm not sure. I would assume they're connected, but like I don't know if the article was necessarily quoting them as a package deal. It was associating Jason Russell with this church, and it was quoting Mark Driscoll talking about the challenges of proselytizing in the 2000s, in the 21st century, baby. It's a different world out there. It's Kony's world. We're just living in it,
Did y'all look at that picture I sent early in the part of this chat of talking Kony 2012 with Pete Wentz wearing the Invisible Children t-shirt? And
oh shit, that's what that was.
What was that? Was that part of the Bruno Mars is also
so
in the
good.
background of that photo,
Yes.
which is crazy.
Such a moment.
Yeah, Pete Wentz in the Invisible Children shirt. He looks crazy. He's wearing the eyeliner and just that era of graphic design. Like even Bruno Mars's fedora, and he's also wearing like the screen printed or like faux screen printed shirt with the digital camera watermark on the bottom right of the photo that says 4/29/2008. Just about exactly 4 years later, Kony 2012 fever would sweep the nation. I guess Invisible Children was already on Pete Wentz's radar a couple years earlier.
Yeah. A trendsetter, like always.
Yeah. I mean, this really was such an insane era of like design, media, aesthetics, ideology. As Julian said, like in the very beginning of this conversation, it was like, did every media made during that time just like use the exact same plugin? Because it's so unified. It's mimetic.
Yeah, it really is.
What else about Kony 2012? You've heard the Soulja Boy song, right?
Yes.
I listened to that earlier.
Stop Kony. He taking all the children and turn them into soldiers.
Stop Kony, man. I can't believe it's going down. From my town to your town, they taking kids, turn them into soldier, put a gun in his hand and his life is over. It's getting so crazy, gotta take it over. We gon' stop Kony, it's 20 over, it's 2012.
Times were so simple back then.
They
You could all get behind something. I mean, like, I was looking through Jason, I want to say, wait, what is this fucking guy's name? Jason Russell.
Jason
I almost said
Russell.
Jason Campbell.
Yeah, we were talking about him all last week.
Jason Russell, like I was looking through his Instagram account, and he just is like not really, can't really figure it out anymore. He had like a generic like anti-Trump thing, a couple years ago that I shared to the chat, but it's just like, he just doesn't really stand for anything. Because I was like curious, where was this guy when there were like migrant children being like locked in jails in the U.S.,
I mean, maybe.
Why doesn't he, like, he doesn't seem like, I mean, I didn't look too far into this, but it doesn't seem like Invisible Children, as we said earlier, as you pointed out earlier, Scott, like, Invisible Children has absolutely no interest in, like, helping any domestic, like child abuse issues.
You got to make him
seemingly
aware of
not.
it. Just message him on Facebook or Instagram
Yeah, make him aware.
or any other meta platforms.
We're going to make Trump famous. We're going to start. I want you to tweet out hashtag Trump 2024 and we will stop.
That's perfect. That's the only way to stop him.
Yeah.
I think it was in the part 2 documentary that there was just a image of just like so many people wearing Kony 2012 t-shirts, red Kony 2012 t-shirts. So good.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it be looking like the Nazis. There's no way around it. But I mean, this is the tough thing, with philanthropy, with activists. I mean, it's easy. And listen, I'm saying this because I'm going to continue to do it until the day I die. It's easy to take pot shots against these types of activists because they're so they take such a confident stand in something that is just like so obviously not subtle and like bordering on insane, if not fully insane.
He's a hyper activist.
Yeah, and it's like I have no doubt that his organization has probably helped a lot of people, but it's one of those things where I want to say like, yeah, why aren't you helping any kids domestically? But it's also like, that's not his mission. Like, he picked a cause, and I don't know. I mean, if God gives us like an NBA style like stats breakdown of our lives, like, when we're about to be judged at the pearly gates, like, I would assume that Jason Russell is going to have a higher children saved statistic than mine.
Yeah, it's more the thing that bothers me is the more like coding this as this is not a political issue, unlike the stuff we deal with at home, where it's like, you could also say that, locking children up who are just being brought to America to find a better way of life is also not a political issue. It has been politicized, but that doesn't mean that it is like inherently political.
Right.
But he is like, because it's like happening in another country and it's like an issue that most people aren't aware of. And there's like nobody who's going to come out and be like, well, say what you will about Joseph Kony. He might not talk like a politician, but he gets the job done. Like, we just have to do something about the, child unemployment rates in Uganda. And he's doing something about it. You may not like it.
He's a job creator.
Yeah, just because there's like no one saying that doesn't mean that like just because people say that about like child abuse, like state inflicted child abuse in the US, like that doesn't mean that it's like suddenly a political issue.
Right.
Yeah.
And the solution, that he proposed that they cheered when they worked toward it was, like 100 troops being deployed to war. And now, again, these troops were advisors. I have absolutely no knowledge of like how the military works. So I'm not going to go ahead and say like he was putting these people in a dangerous situation, but it was basically like his thinking, as an effete, frankly beautiful, liberal filmmaker, is, can we tap from our endless well of like men and women who would, theoretically die by being in a dangerous situation? Can we just like send 100 of them out there to possibly die?
And
that's
the idea
like his
that, like,
solution.
Yeah. The weird like West Wing Aaron Sorkin idea that like the military is also apolitical because like you can solve like a lot of the problems in the world by just like throwing the U.S. military at it.
Right. Because we're the adults in the room. We have the training. We will, we will be, of course, they will, with full respect and obedience to whichever seated president is there. Just so happened to be Obama when this film came out, which doesn't surprise me. But again, it's like, it's an apolitical thing. We can all agree on it. And the solution is send real people into a dangerous zone where they might die, and involve the United States in yet another country and part of the world that just has nothing to do with the lives of anyone who lives here. Like, I don't know. I'm no foreign policy expert. I certainly would not want to feel qualified to say what we should or should not be involved in, but it's pretty amazing to me that all of the solutions to all of our problems are just like, well, let's send people there, you know?
Sending them into a region, which was like the solution to the situation that created somebody like Joseph Kony is to basically do the same thing that caused the situation that created Joseph Kony, which was like foreign intervention into a place.
That's true.
Like, you know, and you trust the geniuses in Washington, D.C. to be able to like figure out what to do.
Yep.
Once they're in this country. Like, this is also like post 9/11 and like the war on terror.
Yeah.
Well, they get help from think tanks and lobbyists informed by those think tanks. So, you know, they can't figure it out themselves over there. So we need our help.
I was reading this like rebuttal. I was reading this rebuttal to like the Kony 2012 documentary, and it was just like kept citing all these like points raised by the Center for Foreign Policy, and because it was like basically saying that Kony 2012 was stupid, I was like, yeah, these guys know what they're talking about. And then I was like, oh yeah, that's like a extremely pro-capitalist, like old white person think tank.
Yeah, they have their own interests that they're defending.
Yeah. They haven't quite figured out how to easily exploit the natural resources of the countries that Kony is in.
Yeah. Don't worry. Hopefully their Jason Russell will come up soon. That will make the perfect documentary. Imagine a guy.
There's some really funny choice quotes from this movie. Also, is like 90% narration by the director, and then the other 10% is interviews with random politicians that are cut completely out of context.
Yeah.
Down to like editing editing two sentences together that were clearly from like two different points in the conversation.
They could be responding to anything at all. I have no doubt that they were talking about Kony, but it could easily not be.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like funny because one of the quotes he used to like represent like the cynical usage of the U.S. military and why they won't go after somebody like Kony is some politician saying like the U.S. will only like send its military into a situation if American lives are at risk or if, you know, American business interests are at risk. And he's like saying that as if it's like a bad thing. And it's like, I mean, if you're not going to like just not use the military at all, which would be like the ideal situation, I would hope that one of the like things that it is used for is not just sending it to whoever we've determined is the random like mysterious bad guy in another foreign country.
Yes.
Well, here's the thing that gets complicated though, is because now the military is one of our businesses.
Yeah.
So
it's a small business.
Yeah,
oh, right. You're right.
Well, so like, you know, if any kind of military opportunity is kind of protecting our business and therefore economy.
Yeah. And I mean, if the military kills Joseph Kony, then Invisible Children is going to fucking crumble, you know?
Well, that's true.
It's funny you say that, Julian, because something's happening over there
right now
in Kony land.
Oh, right.
Let me bring up this. Let me bring up Kony Island. Let me bring up this article from 3 days ago in Rolling Stone. The article date is April 27th. Russian mercenaries hunt the African warlord America couldn't catch. Wagner's hunt for Joseph Kony shows the Kremlin's reach is expanding across Africa as Washington's strategy on the continent unravels. And honestly, I didn't read this article like closely enough to to like pull a bunch of quotes from it, but like the tone of the article basically says that like, you know, the Wagner Group, who I don't fully understand, but they seems to be like, you know, a mercenary network that is like acting globally on behalf of Russian interests.
They're extremely fucked up.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know much about them, but that's my understanding. Yeah. But apparently they are, the article frames it as if they are almost intentionally trying to like embarrass America by doing stuff in Africa.
Strange because the Wagner Group was like working with the Kremlin to do war crimes in Ukraine, and then the Kremlin like stopped backing them, and the Wagner Group was going to like attack the Kremlin essentially.
Oh,
and then the like head of the Wagner Group was like killed in a plane accident.
Yes.
And now they're like working with them to you know, win over the like everyone who, you know, covered the night in 2012. It's very bizarre.
The Wagner Group will cover the night.
Putin just watched Kony 2012.
Watching Jason Russell and his like fellow filmmakers meeting with the head of the Wagner Group to like sign a bill into action that they're gonna kill Joseph Kony.
I think Jason Russell should come out in support of the Wagner Group. I think he should like make a stand. Oh, there's a quote at the end of this article that says that I guess I didn't realize this, but the United States has like a global bounty for $5 million on Kony. And like theoretically, if the Wagner Group were to, you know, compromise Kony to a permanent end, they would, not that we'd have to keep this promise, but based on what the United States has said, they would be owed $5 million directly from the United States.
That is some masterful trolling.
Yes,
yeah.
The symbolism.
I know.
Especially because there's seemingly, I mean, I don't really know anything about this stuff, but like seemingly there's not a whole lot for like the U.S. to gain by someone else killing Kony, you know?
No, of course not. Not that I know anything about this shit, but all I'm trying to say is anyone out there who has been, you know, hanging on, you're on the edge of your seat since 2012. You covered the night and you've still been waiting for, I mean, it's been 12 fucking years and they couldn't get Kony.
Also, he was like not even in Uganda by the time this movie came out.
Well, he changed his tactics because of all the goodwill that was coming, the wave of kindness that was coming to destroy him. He changed his tactics, and now only evil can get him now. That's why we need the Wagner Group in there. So again, I don't know much about this, but yeah, to everyone who's been, you know, ever since Kony 2012, you've been in suspense, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Might want to consider a monthly donation to the Wagner Group because they appear to be poised.
You'll get a bracelet. You'll get a poster.
If actually we at Boys Bible Study, we're making a pledge for the next month. All of our Patreon money will be going directly to the Wagner Group to aid in their effort to, you know, oust Joseph.
Stop Kony. Stop Joseph Kony once and for all. We will be donating our Patreon money minus the cut that goes to Patreon directly to the Wagner Group's Patreon.
Only if they have a Patreon. Also, we are going to our friends at Loose Meat have pledged that they are deploying everyone in the Loose Meat patron Discord is being deployed to Central Africa to act as an advisor to the Wagner Group to make content
and also to wave and wear hats that say I love. That's
I love
it.
Kony,
I love,
you know?
I love Kony.
Oh, yeah, I love Kony.
We got to make him famous.
We got to make him famous again. Get to make him famous again. Kony 2012. One of the most important pieces of media of the past couple decades, honestly. And I think it was about time we covered it on Boys Bible Study. I think it would be a great time for us to wrap this up and give our official Boys Bible Study rating of Kony 2012. What do we think?
Damn, it really is the shorter the movie, the longer our episode
Absolutely.
is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Time flew by.
It did. It was fun.
This documentary, this incredible doxploitation movie, totally lived up to the hype. Really got my brain going. Looking up other media was very exciting. And I'm going to give it 4 out of 3 calls to action. They say there's 3, but in sequential order, it says 1, sign the pledge to show your support. Going to do it. 2, get the bracelet and the action kit. Can't wait. And 3, sign up for try upside down peace sign to donate a few dollars a month and join our army for peace. But then it says right after that, above all, share this movie online. It's free.
They love when like one small thing is free. And then the action kit is like $55.
What? One small thing, it's the movie. It's the greatest gift of all, sharing movies with people.
Yep.
That's what this town was founded on for sure. Also, what the hell was Try? What was that? All of a sudden they were like, it felt like so like fucking Scientology. Like it was like, I'm Jason Russell and this is Invisible Children and also donate to Try. It's like, what the fuck was that?
It stands for the Radical Invisibles.
Oh, okay.
No, I don't know.
There's just like so many. Yes.
I do think
it's
that
like the LLC they need for like tax purposes to have.
Yeah.
Well, I do know that they like Invisible Children is one of like the companies under their umbrella organization. I can't remember what it's called, and I might have that slightly wrong, but like they have a sophisticated corporate structure in place, you know.
Oh, good.
They're not putting all their eggs in one basket.
Yeah, thank God.
It is funny
I would hate
though.
For this
they
money
have this
to directly go to the people who need it.
Right. Yeah. They don't know what to do with it. You need some good Americans to oversee it. Make sure it gets to the right place. But it just seemed like additionally, like one thing's called LRA, and they recruit children to do dirty work for them, and this one's called TRI and does that as well. Amazing.
I'm gonna give this 99 out of the 99problems.com, which is something that Jason Russell was operating in 2020 to do something about Trump. I don't know if it was to vote him out of office or whatever. It was kind of just like, he's got a lot of guy with sign energy.
Yes.
Which is not a good thing. I don't know if you think that is funny, but it's not, and it's really stupid. But it does. He has that kind of energy when he talks about like Trump and stuff. Anyways, yeah, he has a post about how we're going to like, another call to action about people being upset about Trump. And you got to go to the 99problems.com to find out more information. The domain is no longer active, so we'll never know. Some things are like Kony fading into the ether, never to be seen again.
Yeah. Very interesting. Well, I'm just glad to see that Mr. Russell is keeping busy because he seems like the type of guy who, he lives for his work. And I appreciate that about him. I can relate as an activist / podcaster myself. But I am going to have to give this film let's see. I'm going to have to give Kony 2012 20 out of 20 cultural influencers and 12 out of 12 politicians, because we didn't get to mention it yet, but one of my favorite aspects of the Kony 2012 message was that part of the message was we need to reach 20 celebrities that I've picked. That it would be important.
One of them was Tim Tebow.
One was Tim Tebow. I was just going to say, it's so funny because like the ones that he picked, he was like, we need to reach these people. We need to reach Rihanna, Oprah, who ended up doing quite a lot for his campaign, Oprah.
Yeah.
Including interviewing him after he was naked and screaming in the streets, where she asked him in front of the world, are you gay? And were you masturbating? And he was like, no.
There were all these other rumors too that you were gay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard those rumors.
Yeah. That you were running in the streets nude and because you were gay.
Well, you know, in the video, I'm snapping my finger up and down, kind of like this. So, and, you know, I grew up in theater. My parents started a large children's theater organization. So I am, you know, animated. I am
theatrical.
In the article, and I relate to this a lot, Mr. Russell, I feel your pain. He says he is not gay, but he was raised in the theater, so he is very theatrical. But you know what? He made a son. So listen, as far as I'm concerned, that's 100% heterosexual. Like, you know, he had evidence that he had sex with a woman at least once, probably multiple times. So, you know, I got no qualms about you, Mr. Russell. But yeah, Kony 2012. What a film. And even though we are a podcast that specializes in Christian films, I think it's quite clear, hopefully it's quite clear to all you listening, why we spent time watching this one. I think it's fits quite well into our canon. And, you know, if this is your first time listening to us, you want to check out more of the Christian faith-based films we've reviewed, go to boysbiblestudy.com. Look at all of our public episodes. And if you really like what we do and you want to support us and hear even more bonus episodes, go to patreon.com/boysbiblestudy to unlock our bonus content. Special thanks to all of our generous patrons who donate at the $20 tier, our patron saints. They are Nicole, Marissa, Jeff, Rhett, and Mark. Thank you for your support. Lastly, our outro song is Oh My God by Mary. So from all of us here at Boys Bible Study, myself, Ash, my co-hosts, Scott and Julian, our special foreign correspondent, Joseph Kony, we would like to say, peace be with you.
And also with you. I'm Joseph Kony.
Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. I feel your love in me, it's coming from within. Oh my God, my devotion is so unwavering. Divine emotions when you enter me. Every day